Hey there, folks. I'm Aryanna Gonzalez, and let me tell you, what I've been through has got to be some of the weirdest shit in the history of life itself. Or at least in all my years of living. Okay, sorry for the language, but this story is nothing less than a straight-up double mind freak. It all started that evening on our ranch with my dear grandmother, right before the sun had officially set. We knew something had happened in space, and that it was some kind of explosion. But most of the details were a little, let's say, misconstrued. We had heard about a meteor shower, but didn't really expect it to affect us. Thankfully, our ranch wasn't significantly damaged, except for one unforgettable event. You see, there was a direct impact from one of the meteorites. I'd say it was probably the size of a big old juicy watermelon that streaked across the sky and plunged directly into this beautiful pond right behind me. Now, normally I'd steer clear of anything related to UFOs, close encounters, or some sort of international projectile. But there I was, gathering up the much-needed courage to do what I felt like was a proper investigation. With bare feet, I tiptoed towards the pond, leaving my grandmother standing closer to the edge. But as soon as I stepped into the water, I realized something was off. Instead of the expected warmth, the water was incredibly cool, sending a shiver down my spine. Determined, I retrieved the meteorite and brought it into our kitchen for examination. My grandmother considered calling the local radio or news station, but we decided to sleep on it and make a decision about it the next morning. Little did we know, that decision would mark the beginning of a strange journey. We awoke feeling an inexplicable coldness, a sickness almost, creeping over us. We attributed it to the chilly pond water and decided to try to rest and recover. After 5 days of on and off sleeping and bed resting, I finally regained my strength and ventured out of my room. The house felt eerily silent, and my first thought was to check on my grandmother. As I reached her room, my heart immediately sank. She lay motionless, wearing the same clothes as before, and there was no response at all when I called her name. Panic consumed me as tears began to stream down my cheeks and onto the hardwood floor as I distraughtly walked to the kitchen. I promptly called 911, but while trying to explain the situation, I suddenly dropped the phone as the grief from it all began to overwhelm me. Without thinking, I ran out of the house, sprinting with every ounce of emotion racing through my mind, body, and soul as you could imagine. And then, in some kind of weird or strange twist of fate, my body began to instantly transform. As my sprint turned into a gallop, my upper body leaned forward and my hands began to morph into the hooves of one of my favorite animals. Then I totally and unexpectedly transformed into this beautiful thoroughbred horse galloping through the fields. It was an overwhelming experience, as it was also my very first taste of shape-shifting. As I ran, all my anger and emotion began to gradually dissipate. After running half a mile, I came to a complete halt. My body contorted, shifting back into my 19-year-old self. All the anger and sadness that I had felt began to totally ease. Afterwards, I began to make my way back to the house, only to find that the town police, the firemen, and the EMTs were all cleaning up the scene and preparing to leave. They asked if I was okay, and I replied that I would be. In my grandmother's will, she totally left everything on the ranch to me and only me. I couldn't believe it, but I actually expected nothing less. Her presence will always be deeply missed, but I know she'd want me to carry on. There is just no alternative. Now it's up to me to honor her, as well as preserve the legacy of this ranch that holds so many of our cherished memories. Life may throw us unimaginable twists and turns, but we must always find the strength to carry on. I will forever cherish the love as well as the bond that I shared with my grandmother. You best also believe that I'll strive to find a way to always make her proud of everything I do. I seriously hope I didn't bore you to death with all of my traumatic experiences, but I just wanted you to know my story and what's really been eating me. You know, I'm sure we'll see each other again sometime though.